Okay, good morning, everyone. Today is the 26th day of Adar Aleph, and it is March 6th. Can you believe it? We're in March already, March 6th. Okay, in today's lesson, we're talking about, we're in the middle of chapter 32. We're talking about Avos Yisrael. It's the basis and foundation of the whole Torah. You can't possibly be a good Jew without having Avos Yisrael. That's where everything starts. And Alter Rebbe brings today that there's a rare exception that one is allowed to harbor hatred for his fellow Jew. Shocking, no? Steve, are you pretty surprised?
No.
You don't believe it? Okay, exactly. So Steve doesn't believe it. It doesn't seem to make sense. Let's see what he's talking about. Huh? Not the Chabad way, right? And Alter Rebbe is the founder of the Chabad movement. He wrote this Tanya based on all the philosophy of the Chabad way. Let's see what he has to say here. Since every Jew has a divine soul, and since the commandment to love one's fellow is based on the essential unity of the souls, it follows that this commandment applies to every Jew without exception, meaning to love your fellow as yourself. I don't know about any of you, but when I was saying Sim Shalom this morning, and even last night, I just felt a little bit differently. I was trying to, when I said the words, bless our Father as one with the light of your countenance, I was trying to my mind was expanding to unite everything. I don't know. It's hard to describe it because as Steve was trying to describe meditation months ago, you can't put yourself in someone else's mind. We all experience that meditation and that mind frame differently, but that's the way I was doing it. And it's going to apply differently to you, but that's the way I just felt it was different since yesterday morning, which we mentioned this and we've learned this many times. But it's always, it's good to really get into it. So he continues and he says, in fact, however, we find that the Talmud encourages us to hate certain fellows. How? How do we reconcile these apparent contradictions, these contradictory requirements? How do we fulfill what the Talmud tells us to do? And at the same time, have complete and true Avos Yisrael for every single Jew? The Alter Rebbe clarifies the following. The Gemara says in Pesachim, please, Steve, look it up. 113b, okay? So that you don't think it's just a Chabad thing to hate someone else. If one sees his friend sinning, mitzvah l'sa'inai, it's a mitzvah to hate him. And also he should tell to his teacher, to the rabbi, that he also should hate him. So how does this conform with what we said above, that every person has to look at every single Jew from the soul perspective and not from the external reality that we live with, and try to love him despite our differences and our external flaws? It says you should hate him if you see him sinning. It doesn't say hate the action. It says you should hate him. This only applies to one's companion and one's equal in Torah study and observance of mitzvahs. So I need you to think to yourself, how many friends you have that you sit and learn with every single day. You are on the same level as he is in Torah learning and in performance of mitzvahs, and you have the same background and upbringing that could bring you to an equal level of his Torah learning and his performance of mitzvahs. Okay, so I'm sure you have dozens of them, right? Can you think of one? Who's the half? Okay, so the sinner in question is a Torah observant scholar, but he lapsed in one particular instance. In this case, and two of them are learning every day, davening every day, do not miss a minyan, do not come late, and cover all learning topics, and don't miss a single opportunity to do a mitzvah. They're the epitome of perfection when it comes to Torah and mitzvahs, obviously within the realm of, let's say, even Beinani. In this case, such a person's sin is much more severe than somebody else who's not so particular in performance of mitzvahs. Since it is written that even the inadvertent misdeeds of a scholar are as grave as deliberate sins. We talked about this also, whether it's about Moshe Rabbeinu or whatever. The greater person, actually, we talked about this in the JLI. Why does Abaye cringe by the fact that his Yetzer Hara wants him to go and sin, and the other person just casually goes on a walk with a young lady and nothing happens? And he says, if I was in that position, I would have done something disgusting from a healthy Torah approach perspective. So his friend tells him, the wise sage tells him, because the greater you are, the more the Yetzer Hara tries to come and get you to sin. The Rebbe has a very interesting approach on this vort. It doesn't say, oh, I'm so great, therefore I'm being attacked. That's Gaiva, right? That's the ego playing in even further. He says, no, the opposite. If you're constantly being attacked by the Yetzer Hara, it's going to lift you up to greater heights than you ever expected to be on. So don't be disturbed and distraught and upset and bitter about trying to concentrate during davening and the Yetzer Hara is attacking me. The more we overcome it, the higher we can get. So it's actually an opportunity for more spiritual success. If we overcome it, and as we overcome it, that's true. But the point is, when somebody who you expect better, right? You look at someone like a goody two shoes in school makes trouble, and the teacher's like, I didn't expect that coming from you. You pranked the teacher, you did something, you stayed out late recess, you're always on time every day. What? It's the better one that you expect better from. So we're talking about a great scholar, somebody who makes an error, and you're like, you're shocked here. But even this general assumption of the gravity of his conduct is not sufficient to hate him. The Alter Rebbe continues, there has to be another condition that's satisfied. And don't forget, this is in the instance that you're his equal. I'm not sure the Alter Rebbe is talking to any of us, but I mean, if there is somebody who davens and learns every single day and is very particular in his performance of mitzvahs, and your friend who you see every single day and you learn every single day, and then we're not talking about coming late. We're talking about he does an egregious sin, and you're like completely shocked, like this is not in your character. Not only that, take it one step further. He also fulfilled with his friend, this person who did this terrible sin, the injunction that you should repeatedly rebuke him. You warned him, what are you doing? How could you do such a thing? Let's just use a far-fetched example. The guy learns every day. He davens every day. He's Shabbos and mitzvahs, and like everybody knows, he puts all his energy. He's like, and then he just walks into McDonald's and orders a cheeseburger, and he's sitting in his car eating cheeseburger, and you're like, what are you doing? What are you crazy? You warned him, you can't do something like this. And you repeatedly rebuke him. And over here it says, the word amisecha is used, indicating, as the Talmud points out, somebody who is on par with you and you're on par with him regarding Torah mitzvahs. You guys learn the same, you think the same, you act the same, you do mitzvahs together. You grew up together, you went to yeshiva together. But nevertheless, with all of your warnings and all of your also encouragement, like, how could you do this? This is beneath you. You learn every day, you daven every day, you know what's at stake here. How could you possibly do something like this? And nevertheless, that person has not repented of his sin, as written in Eitz Chaim. At this point, there's no need. This is their footnote here. There's no need to exaggerate the gravity of his sin. It's clearly a deliberate transgression. For whatever reason, he's having a weak moment and he's lapsing, and it happens again and again, and it's just incredible, and you can't stop him. Then that's what the Gemara is talking about. But the takeaway is, even when the Torah does not allow us to harbor negative sentiments towards a fellow Jew, it is a very specific and very rare scenario. And for the most part, what's our job? It's almost, as I said before, can you think of one person that you can think from the time, when he was younger in cheder and in yeshiva, and after he got married, and all his life, he learns every day, he davens every day, he never misses a minyan, he's only speaks holy words, never talks badly about anybody else, always gives tzedakah, always, the first one to help somebody. If that person does something wrong, but that means that you have to be on his equal, you also have to be in that category. And you're ready to, and you see your best friend, and he's, up, as you say in Yiddish, he's falling off the wagon a little bit, and you warn him, and you beg him, and you tell him, what are you doing? You scream him, you grab him by the lapels, and he keeps on doing that same thing, mitzvah l'saynai. That scenario is very rare. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's very, very rare. Has to be maybe the chevra that grew up learning all day and davening all day and are sitting in kollel, and even if they're in business, they're together, because if you're not with him, you don't know what the scenario is and what the situation is. Maybe he suffered a tragedy, you're not aware of it. Maybe he's going through some kind of depression, you're not aware of it. So in that instance, it's virtually and almost impossible, because you don't judge someone until you put yourself in their shoes. How can you put yourself in their shoes? Because unless you're with him every single day, 24 hours a day, and all your life and all his life, it's next to impossible. You're not married to the guy, so you don't know. Even if you're sitting with him learning all day, then he goes home and his children are, they're ridiculing him and his wife, and we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. So therefore, putting that aside, the Gemara is not wrong, but the chances of that scenario playing out are next to virtually, are literally impossible. And so therefore, the flip side is, if you can't hate him and you can't, you're not going to put yourself in that situation, then the opposite is you have to love him. So the exact opposite, the same way Steve was shocked, it's actually the exact opposite. That Alton was sharing with us, that when you see someone sinning, you have to love him, because that's the way to bring him in. You don't know what he's going through. You don't know what brought him to this stage. Even if externally it looks like he's doing everything proper and he seems to be a good guy and doing all the right things, but if you're not close enough to him that you know every single thing that he does and everything that makes him tick, then you have to love him and encourage him and help him along and not judge him. And hopefully he'll do the same for you. Have a good day, everyone.